So it's always this procedure talking to myself as these things start off, which I'm not going to do too much. Hello, Just Common Sense. Good evening. You're the first person to tune in, so welcome. We'll see how this goes. It's 9:20 JX evening. Two people already, so that's good. Welcome, and we'll see if a few more join in. That's surprisingly quick. I honestly thought I'd be waiting a few minutes because I literally just started this. So you guys must have been online. Hope you're well. And if you've been in my live streams before, you'll know how this works. Sort of give people the opportunity to raise subjects, maybe bring up something I've spoken about in my videos. Just generally a way to engage your subscribers. That's how I work these. I'm pleasantly surprised it's such a quick response. Honestly thought I'd be waiting a little bit. As you can see, I'm multitasking, doing the dishes. I like to try and be productive, so multitasking here. Hope you will excuse me for that. At the moment, the Wi-Fi is okay, but if it goes down, what I will do is start another live stream. Maybe. Depends what the flow is like. Looking after my brother's dog at the moment, so I'm going to walk her if the rain eases off. So guys, what would you like to talk about? You can raise any subject, maybe anything in my videos you'd like to talk about. Voice your views on anything at all. The whole point, I think, of these live streams is to engage. So that's the primary objective. So 4 viewers, if you come in, please do say hello. Let us know that you're here. What's your opinion on Trump's potential re-election? I think it's an astonishing situation. Oh, Just Common Sense. I watched your video on the Jeremy Kyle show. It was very interesting. I could completely agree with you. I also felt the same way about it. Don't pay where tickets away. Ray, welcome. Hi, Nathan. Do you think Joe Biden should retire from politics? I think the man has got dementia. No way you carry on at 80. I'm not trying to be ageist. Well, that question and the previous question on Trump, I'll tie them in together because they are the two presumptive nominees. I think it is American politics is in a mess. There's a new movie out, Civil War, a Danny Boyle movie, which shows a sort of dystopian future America where an actual civil war is broken out. I don't think that's going to happen in the sense of a full-on civil war, but I do think there's a real risk of serious domestic disorder. I think it's an awful choice. Now, if I were an American, I'd probably go for Biden, but I'm not overly reluctant. Not overly keen on that option either. I think Trump is. I just cannot fathom how a man with so many criminal charges against him, who has a contempt for democracy, he's a sore loser. He panders to foreign dictators like Putin. I just think if he gets back into the White House, in my opinion, the United States will lose the right to call itself the leader of the free world. I'm not sure if any country will have that right. But traditionally, American presidents have always promoted this mantle of defending freedom. Often misplaced, given the nefarious activities of the CIA. But that aside, I just think Trump is appalling. But Joe Biden, unfortunately, his age does show. So, Ray, I see where you're coming from. Unfortunately, his age does show. But, I don't think the Trump campaign can capitalize on this. Trump's own memory is far from stellar. He recently mixed up his wife's name. So the Trump campaign are acting as if their candidate's some fresh-faced young candidate. He really isn't. Trump's only 4 years younger. I think he's 77. Biden's 81. They're both too old. And it's not an ageist thing, because if they were both if they didn't show their age, you could get people now who are healthy and youthful for their age. So it's not necessarily the number, it's the fact that they both show it. I thought Biden's State of the Union was quite good. It was strong, but the problem is it's inconsistent. There are times, as age shows, and when you have that pressure of responsibility, I think Biden should have made way for a younger candidate. The problem is the only other guy that kind of stayed in the race, Dean Phillips, is unknown. He's an unknown senator, I believe he was, from the Midwest. Just doesn't have name recognition. But it's the same in the Republican field. I mean, I know of pro-Republicans who would prefer Ron DeSantis. I think he's mini Trump myself. But anyway, that's my take. Hi there, Nathan. Hi, Toxic. Welcome. Have you heard about Project 2025, the Republican plan if Trump gets re-elected? I haven't heard about that one, but I've heard of a sort of, I don't know if it's a meme or internet theme going on about Red Caesar, this idea of pushing a basically dictatorship of Trump. I mean, for want of a better term. And sorry, to go back to just common sense. Yeah, thank you for your comment. Thank you for watching the Jeremy Kyle thing. Thankfully, that's now 4 years. Hard to believe 4 years since that ghastly show was taken off air. It does make my stomach turn that Kyle is still making money. I mean, he was a presenter on Talk TV for a while. My local MP, just a personal thing before I go on about American politics. My local MP, Julie Elliott, Labour MP, she was one of the members of the committee that scrutinised reality TV in the wake of the Kyle scandal. So it's one good thing she's done as MP. I'm not saying it's the only good thing she's done, but that was something that I'm pleased she was on that committee. So Project 2025, I'm not familiar with it, I must be honest. But I imagine that's looking into Trump's potential second term. Oh, it's off air. Yeah, it's been off air for 4 years, thank goodness. What basically happened was one of the guests committed suicide. I say guests in loose, very loosely, but the guy committed suicide, and then that led to a situation where it was basically taken off air. ITV finally took some responsibility and took it off air. You know, ITV's had some good productions. They had that one regarding the post office scandal, which was groundbreaking. But they've also come out with some real rubbish. And there is, I mean, it's not just a Jeremy Kyle show. There's Celebrity Love Island, and that has several suicides linked to it. I just think that there is something very obnoxious about this sort of television. It's not that I have much sympathy for some of the guests, but, you know, Kyle would do something like say, oh, we're here with his benefit scrounger and he or she is raking in millions from the taxpayer. What he didn't say was he would give them money to appear on the show. The man was a complete hypocrite. He'd also, played judge, jury, and executioner. My understanding is he had a gambling problem. So Jeremy Kyle is not exactly a saint himself. Thoroughly obnoxious man. And I really have no respect for him. He's one of the public figures I least like. But anyway, the show is off the air, so at least that's something. But it should have been taken off years ago. What really angered me was that people said, oh, the guests choose to go on. Well, not really. If they're misled. I remember one guy was told he was going to reconcile with his wife. And Kyle brought out her new lover just to flaunt, to create tension for viewing. I think that's disgusting. And unlike Jerry Springer, I mean, the Jerry Springer show was trash, but I think a lot of that was scripted. With Jeremy Kyle, it wasn't. I think they genuinely were broken people with serious problems. And I think Kyle's disgusting. If he really wanted to help those people, he'd be a professional psychologist or counselor or something. He wouldn't parade their problems on national TV. I just find it repulsive. Kind of a modern equivalent of Roman gladiatorial games. One judge described it as human bear baiting, and I agree with that. Now, I suppose you could argue boxing is human bear baiting, but I think there's more leeway there. Boxers train, they are professional sportsmen and women. With Jeremy Kyle, you had troubled people exploited. Let's see, just get get on my plates here. Okay, let's see. Declan, welcome. Let's see. Try and keep up with all the comments. Well, I don't like that stuff. I lost my job because of COVID and became homeless. And I used to look down on people and benefits. Still, I had to go to the job centre. I agree with your universal credit videos also. I mean, if you've had the experience of homelessness, John, just common sense, you've been through something most people haven't. So I really, my heart goes out to you. You will know what that was like. It's one of my fears, I must admit, ever being in that situation. Well, you've been there. The thing about life experiences like that is it does give us perspectives on things that we may not previously have. Um, Regarding the universal credit thing, I mean, if you know my stance, yes, there are people who exploit the system, but I also think the system is too heavily focused on sanctions, and this is something I dislike about the Tory party. Jeremy Hunt was talking about providing outreach for people with mental health problems, yet simultaneously pushing the sanction culture. I mean, it's a contradiction. This unquestionably sanction culture in the DWP has pushed people over the edge. Hi Nathan, what do you think of Alex Jones? Remember when he was on Andrew Neil's show shouting his head off? I don't think much of him, and I agree. Yeah, he probably has mental health issues, but in his case, I've little sympathy. I think he's despicable. I think what he done to the families of the Sandy Hook victims, if you other guys aren't familiar with this, basically the Sandy Hook massacre in Connecticut 12 years ago, 2012, a mass shooting in a school. Alex Jones promoted the conspiracy theory that the relatives of parents of these kids were crisis actors, and he kept pushing this. And he had a little British sidekick, I forget what the guy is called, but I agree that he probably has some mental health issues, possibly, but it's no excuse for what he does. And I understand he's bankrupt now because the family successfully sued him. So, yeah, he's a despicable character, and the less that Alex Jones gets the oxygen of publicity, I think the better. Let's see. Hello, Nathan. Typical YouTube not notifying me if you're live. Well, you haven't missed much, Declan. We've only been doing this for about 10 minutes, so you're well in. Kevin Grant, trans community. Okay. What's the context to that? I'm sorry, maybe I missed the previous. Did you leave a question or? Sorry, Kevin, you need to give a bit more context there. Welsh Cowboy, what do you think of O.J. Simpson's death? Yeah, I just heard it in the last hour. He should have been in prison for the start. I have to be honest, I have not looked at that case inside out, and I may well do that now. I actually have a documentary on the subject of fame, an old David Frost documentary. There was a series of them that was called Witness. One was on armed conflict. One was on fame, great survival. But anyway, they featured the O.J. Simpson case and how divisive it was 30 years ago, 1994. I honestly don't know. I know that he's done prison time since then for an armed robbery. I think the guy's no saint. That's the impression I get. But honestly, I don't know enough about the case. Nicole Brown Simpson and was it Ray Goldman, the other victim? I think there are many people feeling that O.J. Simpson got off the hook. Many others say that he was an innocent man. Honestly, I just don't know enough about the case. A Welsh Cowboy, I guess you followed the case closer than I have. So, I mean, my understanding was he was initially acquitted due to lack of evidence, but who did it? Did they ever say there was an alternative suspect? Or, I mean, maybe I'll look back into it, and I imagine there'll be renewed scrutiny of this with his death. But some would say, he made it to 76, he had grandchildren. Some would say he escaped justice. Others would say it was a victory for justice because an innocent man walked free. I just don't know. I may well make a video on that. May or may not, depending on how things pan out. I will say this, though. Obviously, there was racial politics involved in that. And one thing I think that's unfortunate in the United States is because there has been a history of racism, it sometimes blinds the American left to the fact that you do get black suspects who are indeed guilty. I mean, the fact that there's been institutional racism in the past doesn't mean that every single black suspect brought before a court of law is innocent. In fact, America's worst serial killer, Samuel Little, black man, and he killed women in numerous states. A thoroughly evil character. Is the NAACP or the Southern Poverty Law Center going to say he's a victim of a racist justice system? I mean, there comes a point where serious crime is committed and someone done it. But like I said, I don't know enough about this case to say either way. I might look more into it. How you been? Thank you, Declan, for asking. I'm okay. My sleeping structure isn't wonderful, but I'm okay. I had a bit of hassle earlier, actually. I was going to go to the cinema and I realised it was running a bit late. I have to go out of town now because Sunderland no longer has a cinema. So I was going to go to Gateshead, which I'm getting used to. It's a nice little cinema there. But anyway, I realised it was running a bit late, so I sort of changed my plans and I just went to the newsagents. But on the way there, this guy, I mean, I could say he was a junkie. I don't know for sure, but it looked like him and a little group of people were, up to something in the doorway corner. Just randomly says, "You're a ginger twat," something like that to me, and I basically turned to him and I said, "Why? What? Why? Why do you say that?" I said, "I'll knock you out," and I was like, I honestly at that point wasn't so much. I wasn't scared. It was just a little bit taken back by that. Okay. The funny thing is, I think I recognized him. I think the guy went to my school years ago, and he was always, a bad boy, so to speak. But anyway, I went and done my business, and I was going to go on the way back. I thought, no, I'm going the same way back. I'm not going to, change my direction from fear of this POS. And I honestly just was bracing myself maybe for a confrontation. And if I had to defend myself, luckily they were gone at that point. There was a girl with him and she sort of said, "Oh, it's not worth it," or something like that. But I think I kind of muttered at him, "You're not worth it, mate." Because, and it gets into this thing. I mean, I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well. Wherever you live, we have yobs in this country who just cannot keep their mouths shut. They just have to say something to a stranger, and it's aggravating. But it really, really does pay sometimes to walk on because I was in a situation. I had my phone, I had money. I mean, if his friends got involved, I could have had my phone stolen. And granted, it's a cheap phone, but it's only one I have. So sometimes you have to put practicality above your ego. I mean, goodness knows, I really felt like, what the hell? I wanted to go back and confront this asshole, but I didn't. Oh, they wasn't there anyway. But yeah, so sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. But Declan, you asked how I was. I know you've had experience of crime, Declan. So nothing happened, but it could have. This guy threatened to knock me out. Part of me was thinking that he was too high or too messed up to really have good coordination, whereas I would have been prepared. I don't know, but you have to be careful with people like that because it's not necessarily that they're physically threatening, but he could have had a knife. You just don't know. You just don't know. So sometimes we have to bite our tongue and move on and think it is really not worth this low life. Yeah. So that was not ideal, but it's sometimes useful to have those situations to see what we would do. But nothing happened. It was just a bit of verbals. Let's see. Sorry, guys, it's going a little bit fast at the moment. So, okay, my hands. Stop commenting a second because the comments are coming too fast. So just give me a second, guys, because I can't really stop this with my hands being. So let me scroll up a little bit. Welsh Cowboy, I was going to actually watch Monkey Man, the Dev Patel film. It wasn't actually going to be my first choice, but I have 3 films lined up: Civil War, Monkey Man, and Kong Godzilla. I like monster movies, so that's all 3 I had lined up. So I'm going to kind of, what I sometimes do when I go to Gateshead, nice little cinema, I do what I call a double bill. So rather than paying for the metro twice, in the Northeast we have a metro transit system. Rather than paying for it twice, I'll just see 2 movies in a row with a little intermission. Saves money that way. Ideally, there'd be a cinema in Sunderland, but that's in the works. We're apparently going to get a big film studio, but our cinema is in the works. Okay. RMP to them poor kids. Just come since I guess you're talking about the Nicole Brown Simpson and and I think the guy was called Ray Goldman, the other victim. Yeah, absolutely. Toxic. Going back to the jeering thing on Gladiators, I think even though it was scripted, it does kind of still give out the message it's okay to do, which I'm wary of. I think in other areas like politics, I guess it's feasible when it comes to disgraceful individuals. Yeah, I know what you're referring to, like the another one bites the dust. Is that the bit that you're referring to? I'm not overly keen on it myself, but I still think it is quite different from the Jeremy Kyle show or Britain's Got Talent. Because with Britain's Got Talent, I mean, another thing is the audience in Gladiators almost universally pitch for the contender. And there's always, if you look, there's always good nature between the two contenders, although they're technically in competition. There's always good sportsmanship. The Gladiators, you get some like Viper and Legend. I'm sure they're told to be the villains. Um, so I appreciate what you're saying, but I really don't think it's comparable to Britain's Got Talent because with Britain's Got Talent, that's spontaneous, that jeering and that booing people off stage if they're not good enough. I think that's particularly ugly. I don't think Gladiators is like that. Um, I was not very well last week, chest infection, thankfully recovered with antibiotics. Yeah, sorry to hear that. It's not fun feeling weakened like that because you just feel, I mean, when I'm in that situation, I just feel useless. It's not fun. Right. At the time, it made me angry that OJ got off, yet Louise Woodward was convicted, although she got off in the end. Yeah, I remember the Louise Woodward case back in 1997, I believe. I think I still have some of the newspapers from that. The British nanny convicted of, she was involved in the shaken baby syndrome case in Massachusetts. And I remember at the time there was a transatlantic gulf. The British press were talking about the harshness of the American justice system. Our press was saying there should have been leniency because it wasn't what it appeared to be. Um, Goodness me, 27 years ago now. Um, Again, I can't remember all the details of that case, but as you say, she was acquitted in the end. I just remember her looking very scared in the court of law. She was a young woman at the time, I think in her early 20s, something like that. But there's been other cases. If you remember more recently, the American diplomat's wife who killed the young lad in Norfolk. So that got into a situation where, you know, she was pleading diplomatic immunity. Um, I always find transatlantic or international legal cases are always particularly dicey because it's often two different justice systems that are in operation. That's why I'm changing subject a bit here. But if you have a Westerner accused of drug smuggling in an Asian country or North Africa, Middle East, um, often it's a case of we look at the system like, well, where's the due process there? Have they had access to a defense lawyer, etc., which would be very important in our justice system. And in other justice systems, that isn't necessarily a thing. I'm always wary, you know, of a system where people have to sign a confession or have to sign something in a language they don't understand. In our system, they would get a translator. I'm very wary of that. So I get frustrated with people who say, oh, their country, their laws, because they're just assuming that there isn't corruption. They're just assuming that someone will have a fair trial. I'm not sure that that's always the case. But yeah, the O.J. Simpson thing, I definitely don't think the guy's saying. That's my gut feeling. I'll probably buy the Times tomorrow. They usually have big write-ups, so see what they say about it. If they, I'm sure they'll cover the case. Speaking of America, even though, as you said, there's no other country that would take up the freest country mantle, there would be better alternatives like Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's definitely countries that are ahead of America in some areas. The thing about New Zealand, though, it's a small country. It's only 3.5 million, 4 million people. It just doesn't have. It's wealthy. It's modern. It's generally, you know, it's a functioning democracy, etc. But it's a small country. Australia is a bit bigger, um, but no country is perfect. Australia, the issue there would be. I mean, I think I get a generally good impression from Australia, but well, yeah, I was going to say, but Paul Keating, the former prime minister, is a China stooge, but that's beside the point. Former being the operative word. Just common sense. I'm ginger as well, lad, and I got in so many fights in school sticking up for myself, but wasn't worth it as I almost got arrested. Be the bigger man, mate. Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, we have to think practically. I could have lost my temper and just laid into the guy. You know, it's like, because it's not so much him, he's meaningless, but it's the memory of crap that I've dealt with in the past. I could have laid into him. It could have got ugly, and then it could end up being. Now, I think to be fair, the police are going to believe me over a junkie, but that's not the point. What if I laid into him and maybe I'd done him a bit of damage, but then his friends get in? You know, I remember there's two other people there, a girl and another guy. The other guy didn't say anything, and the girl said to him, a woman, I should say, you know, "Oh, it's not worth it." Like she was almost trying to. He wasn't even angry; he was just mouthing off, and no reason. He didn't. It's not like he asked me for a cigarette or something. There was just no. There was no communication there. He was just being an asshole. Um, and as you say, sometimes it's hard. It is hard because nobody likes the idea that a stranger thinks they could take advantage of us. I think there is a bit of male ego involved. I mean, I'm enough of an alpha male to not like that. I'm enough of an alpha male to want to knock his block off, right? But we do have to think practically. I mean, let's say I done that, and even if I hurt him, what if his friends come out and steal the backpack I had? The backpack, which had some books, I have my phone in my pocket, you know, so I'm vulnerable automatically by the fact I'm carrying stuff. And then they could be, you see what I mean? So although I went back the same route and he wasn't there, it's probably a good thing that he wasn't there because I might well have, you know, my mouth might have got me into trouble because I'm not, I'll be honest, I'm not the calmest person in the world. I don't like the yob culture we have in this country. I do have a short fuse with that, but sometimes you do have to be practical. That's very true. What film was I going to watch? Yeah, like I said, Monkey Man. I wasn't overly sure about it at first because the trailer made it look like just gratuitous violence for the sake of it. But I like Dev Patel as an actor, and I don't know, it's a bit different, bit different. Apparently, it's based on a Hindu story about well, a Hindu god. An Indian film, but in English language. It's, I don't know, it's a bit different. But certainly, I want to see Civil War because I like Danny Boyle as a director, and I think the subject matter is kind of topical. I don't think America's about to end up in a second Civil War, but I think I've liked every Danny Boyle film I've seen. 28 Days Later, The Beach, um, good director. Slumdog Millionaire. He also directed the London 2012 opening ceremony, so I think the man's got real talent. Coming up to 2 years since my attack, thankfully nothing than that happened since. I mean, this is the thing, Declan. I've been a victim of crime in the past, but it has actually been a long time. So it's more the memory. I mean, nothing happened earlier. I wasn't assaulted. It wasn't. Nothing really happened, but it's more the memory of what's happened in the past. You know, I've been assaulted, so it's like, no, not this time. I don't want to tolerate that. Hi, Nathan. You talked about sensitivity in your videos. I remember when I was in London, people were mocking my Scouser accent. I wasn't happy about it, but I've experienced something similar. Yeah, I literally uploaded that video about, I guess, an hour ago because it was related to the Scottish hate crime bill. Well, you mentioned accent, Ray. You know, I mean, Scouser's quite distinctive. My accent's quite distinctive. Could it be argued that maybe accents should be included in this hate crime legislation? You know, that if someone is targeted for abuse because of their accent, maybe that should be included if the religion thing is. But where do we draw a line? I mean, I think it's a shitty thing to give someone a hard time because of their accent or physical appearance. But yeah. Anyway, just address some of the other comments. I want to see Civil War. I suspect that the director might be warning us about the dangers of polarization. Absolutely. And you know, there is definite echoes there. America is a deeply polarized country right now. And, you know, I'm old enough to remember American elections going back to Bush versus Gore. They've always been tense. There's always been tensions there. But I honestly think this year, I mean, if 2020 was bad, the Trump Biden rematch, it's going to be ugly. I can't see this being a civil contest with the two characters involved. Trump certainly, but Biden has ego as well, and I cannot see this being a gentlemanly contest. I see it being very possibly most tense American election ever. That doesn't bode well because people will become divided. It will be tribalized. I just wish American centrists would speak up more because right now it seems to be that moderates are replaced by either, you know, real make America first Trump types or real woke types on the other side. So I do think it's deeply polarized. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely want to see that one, Welsh Cowboy. I think it'll be a good movie. Not sure who's in it. I think Jesse Plemons is one name I recognise. I've seen him in a few things. Um, I think there's a few big actors. There's bound to be if it's a Danny Boyle film, but should be good. Definitely want to see that one. Um, it's Alex Garland, not Danny Boyle. But is Danny Boyle not directing it? I know it's based on the Alex Garland novel, but have they not collaborated? Because I mean, Alex Garland wrote The Beach, Danny Boyle directed The Beach. So is okay, maybe I'm mistaken. Is Danny Boyle no connection to this? I was under the impression he was directing it. But you know what? I could be getting my wires crossed because there was actually an advertisement here for a new film that Danny Boyle is shooting in the Northeast, and they're advertising for extras. I'm interested. The only thing is, like, the Northeast is, it's a big region, so if I have to travel somewhere by car, it wouldn't be feasible. Dwayne Johnson also openly didn't endorse Biden too. The thing about Dwayne Johnson, I've often thought about this. The Rock. It's a coincidence. It's funny you mention that. One second. I was literally watching this last night. I'm quite a big WWE fan, especially the Attitude Era. Watching this last night, so coincidence. Yeah, I mean, I've heard Dwayne Johnson is quoted as being a Republican, but I don't know if there's any basis for that. You see a lot of things about the problem with someone like Dwayne Johnson, or the problem for him, I should say, is he's incredibly popular. He's a hugely successful action film star. He's one of the most popular wrestlers of all time. He's a huge celebrity. Um, so if he was to take, political positions on abortion or gun issues or Israel and Palestine, etc., there's weighty issues. He inevitably will polarize some of his fans. So that's always a danger for a popular celebrity getting involved in politics. I'm not saying he shouldn't, but because he has been named actually as a potential future president. And a while back, people would say, what, a former wrestler? Well, if Donald Trump can run for president, anyone can. And honestly, I think Dwayne Johnson, I'd rather see him in the White House than Trump. Um, did That's interesting, Toxic. Was he interviewed on this, or did he explain why he didn't want to endorse Biden? I'll be honest. I would be saddened if Dwayne Johnson endorsed Trump, but it would. I like the guy. He seems like a fairly amicable guy. I mean, I was going to say down to earth. I can't really say that. He's a multimillionaire, super famous. He has a different life than we do. But I would be disappointed if he was pro-Trump, given everything that's happened. Um, I mean, they say, you should separate someone from the politics. Sometimes it's hard not to. Um, Garland is directing it. The writer, Alex Garland. I did not know that. That's interesting. So he's now got into directing. That's interesting. I mean, sometimes you get writers who are the producer, which makes sense. But I did not know that Alex Garland is directing it. I didn't know he was even in the world of directing. Interesting. I have a book called The Tesseract set in the Philippines, and it's not a sequel to The Beach, but it's written in similar prose, I understand. So I want to get around to reading that. Okay, let's see. Dwayne Johnson also didn't endorse Biden too. Openly didn't endorse Biden too. Oh, that's where I said that. Asylum seekers, immigrants, people on benefits, the trans community. Okay, Kevin, but what are you referring to? Are you talking about the Jeremy Kyle show, or I don't think Kyle ever covered trans issues. So sorry, can you just provide some context because you've just given a list there? I don't know if you've given a previous comment, or I need a bit more context there, Kevin. Did you ever get around to looking into the SDP? I know I asked a couple of streams ago, mate, but I think it would help you getting involved with a party. To be honest, right now, I don't have the time to be politically active. It's not something I would rule out in the future, but if I was to be a member of a party, then inevitably they call me up. Would I be interested in canvassing? I've done it before, so I have got experience of it in the 5 years I was in the Liberal Democrats. It's not that, you could do it part time, but it's a commitment, and that right now I am not willing to nail my colours to any political mast. I'll probably vote for the Liberal Democrats on a local level because the Lib Dem councillors here do hard work. I mean, they have done some good things I like, but nationally, like I say, I'm in a wilderness. I'll probably look at the website, but I mean, in terms of actually being actively involved in the party, I've just too much on my plate right now. I didn't know if USA could go into a second civil war, but could easily see it going down a divisive path like Northern Ireland. Yeah, I think there's a potential for violence. Definitely. It's already happened in 2021, in large part with Trump refusing to concede defeat. I think my fear about America is there's potential Timothy McVeighs out there. If you're familiar with the Oklahoma City bombing, he had a grudge against the federal government. He blamed them for the Waco siege. There are a lot of, let's say, survivalist types, deeply hooked on, deep state conspiracy theories, a lot of alt-right types and whatever they want to call themselves. I don't trust any of them. And there's left-wing equivalents. I think there is definitely some unstable people in America. We have them here too, but we don't have the prevalence of guns here. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's a potential for violence. Now, I don't think it'll be on such a scale as to be classified as a war, but I think it could be serious. I could think it could be as bad as 1968. And of course, 2020 was pretty bad. So I definitely think the potential is there. And both sides will really have to rein in on their extremes, but we have at least one side in Donald Trump who not only doesn't rein in on them, he actively encourages them. It's not that the Democrats are much better, not so much Biden personally, but some senior Democrats. I remember when the George Floyd stuff was going on, Nancy Pelosi was fueling the flames. So the Democrats are not innocent in this regard either. I do think there's a potential for violence, not in rural areas, more in the big cities. There are articles. I have some good news, Nathan. Remember when Lapierre in the NRA, he resigned. And what I could say to him is good riddance to him. In turn, it also dealt a huge blow to the NRA as well. What, were the NRA too soft for Wayne Lapierre's liking? Or is it just, I mean, he must be in his 80s now. Maybe it's just an age thing. One could be tempted to say there could be poetic justice. Did he get shot? I know we shouldn't wish for violence, but it does make you wonder, would it make them reconsider their attitude to things? But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get too excited though, toxically, because it'll just be replaced by someone else who, I mean, the NRA unfortunately remains a powerful organization. So, I mean, if Lapierre had been forced out with some scandal, to be honest, that would appeal to me more than he just resigned of his own accord because of old age or something. It's an obnoxious organization, and I think that anyone who replaces him will be pushing the same mantra. So I didn't know that, but I don't know how significant it is. So talking to movies, guys, what was the last film each of you saw? Let's do a little survey here. Just write down the last movie each of you saw in the cinema, or in general, at all. What was the last movie you saw? I watch films regularly. I have a huge DVD collection. I watched the Godfather trilogy with my dad recently. I actually think, now this is getting into blasphemy territory, I think it's pretty good. I suspect it's slightly overrated. I've seen other mob movies that are at least as good. So I know that's kind of blasphemy, but The Godfather Part 3 had a young Sofia Coppola. She's now a director herself. I also watched The Last Testament of Christ, controversial film with Willem Dafoe, directed by Martin Scorsese. Being Easter that's just passed. Controversial because it explores Christ the man. And literally, there's a scene where he comes down from the cross and he imagines a life of not a normal life, getting married and stuff. It's at the time it was a deeply controversial film, and it still is. Made in 1988. And I also watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit with my mum. We always watch a movie on Wednesday nights. So 3 movies last night: Who Framed Roger Rabbit, The Godfather Part 3, and The Last Testament of Christ, all unrelated to one another, except The Godfather Part 3 is set in the Vatican, so it's not totally unrelated. What was the last film each of you saw? So sometimes it takes a few seconds for comments to come through. Just a heads up, guys, this live stream isn't going to be super long because I've said I'll bring the dog out before when the rain stops, and it appears to have stopped. So maybe another 10 minutes, I guess. But as always, I appreciate you coming to these live streams because it does make them worthwhile. So what's the last film each of you saw? Seems to be a pause in the comments. I know I did say to slow down a bit, but it's okay now. So if you want to leave a comment, that's okay. Yeah, for me, the 3 that I want to see, actually, I didn't do a film review on this one, but I saw a more down-to-earth film in the sense, no special effects, it was just pure acting. Mother's Instinct, Jessica Chastain and Anne Hathaway. Basically, the synopsis set in the early 60s, 2 women, close friends. One of them has, her son has a tragic accident and she sort of blames her friend. And it's about this ongoing tension between the 2 women. I won't say what happens, but I thought it was a particularly good thriller. I don't often watch thrillers, but that one was good, worth watching. So if Mother's Instinct happens to be shown at your local cinema, what I liked about it too wasn't like just shock and gore and blood. Some thrillers try to be too shocking. This was just intelligent. It was good acting. I thought it was intelligent. Critics were mixed in their opinion. They said it lacked a good plot. I disagree with that. I thought it was good. I don't like films that are too convoluted, actually. I mean, I want to go to the pictures for a bit of escapism, not always to overthink. And I thought this just got the balance right. So that was one of the last films I saw. But I've seen quite a few this year. There seems to be a pause. I don't know if there's something going on. I mean, my Wi-Fi is okay, but no new comments here for about 5 minutes. So I don't know if you guys are trying to comment. And let's see a bit, a whole stream of them come through. Oh, here we go. We have one more. Sorry, whoa, they're all coming through. I don't know what happened there. Maybe I just didn't scroll down. Sorry about that, lads. Welsh Cowboy. You can be sure Steven Seagal will be endorsing Trump. He's a massive Putin fan. Yeah, I was going to say endorse Vladimir Trump or Donald Putin. Same difference. Seagal's an idiot. I mean, useful idiot. Hi, Nathan. Do you think Barack Obama was a good president of America? Because he did do good with the Obamacare, so Americans could pay affordable care, not ridiculous amounts. He tried, absolutely. I would put Obama above average. I think, he wasn't far left. There was, whenever a moderate Democrat runs for president, the Republicans scaremonger, like he's a socialist, he's going to do this and that. It wasn't a flawless presidency. There were things like the NRA spying scandal, not NRA, NSA spying scandal, which caused some tensions with European neighbors. Some say he didn't do enough on Syria. But, in 8 years, any president's going to have plus and negative points. I do think Obama genuinely did try to be a unifier in a way that Trump absolutely hasn't. He certainly draws rings around Donald Trump. He's a statesman in a way that Trump will never be. I'd put Obama as an above average president, not at the very top, but above average. In fact, academics, I think they currently rank Obama between 9th and 10th, so that's pretty high out of 46 presidents. Trump is either smack bang at the bottom or in the bottom five. That says something. I mean, I'm talking about various academic studies on presidential greatness. But, that takes into account different things. It takes into account, did the president achieve what they set out to achieve? It's not just about polling, there's a lot of factors considered. Were they influential in their time? Were they a generational president that influenced the time they were in? You get some presidents that aren't. I mean, Gerald Ford wasn't. George H.W. Bush wasn't. They just happened to be president, perhaps at eventful times, but they weren't transformative presidents. I think Obama was. Of course, he didn't get everything right. I remember, I think it was Matt Damon saying, "I'm very disappointed with Obama." And Obama rebuked, "Well, I watched the latest Matt Damon movie and I was disappointed by him." So he was a smart guy, Obama. I've got several of his books. He could be PC at times, but even Obama has weighed in on the woke thing and said it goes too far. That's coming from Barack Obama. So, even I'd see Obama as a moderate centre left figure or even a centrist figure. I don't think he was that left wing. But yeah, definitely the drive for Obamacare. It wasn't perfect, but the nature of it was, I think, well principled. Glad Jeremy Kyle is no longer on TV anymore. I know you don't like Gordon Ramsay either. Thankfully, he mellowed a lot in recent years, not nearly as rude and mean as he was. I did not know that. It's good to see that he did. I don't know whether that's maybe his producers have had a word with him, like tone it down. Maybe he's changed. You see, people always said it was just for the cameras, but my point would be, well, okay, it's just for the cameras, but what sort of message does that send out? That you can only inspire people by yelling in their face? I never liked it, but it's good that he's mellowed out. Seems to swear a lot less too. Maybe he genuinely has changed. Good. I hope that the Liberal Democrats do well. I would rather they be in the third biggest party than Reform UK. Problem is, some on the left won't forgive them for going into coalition with the Tories. Well, I speak as a former member of the Liberal Democrats. I'm not a fan of Ed Davey. I think he's weak. I think he's woke. And I don't like the way he's handled the post office scandal, because he said that the post office lied to him, or the postal executives lied to him. But as the minister responsible for this, he didn't even meet with the lawyers of those representing the postmasters. So he has questions to answer. I also think the Lib Dems are pretty woke. But at council level, I find Liberal Democrats tend to be good locally. That's my experience. They do genuinely work hard. Liberal Democrats here, for instance, they've been on the right side of a lot of issues in Sunderland. The Labour-held Sunderland Council has got rid of our air show, which is absurd. They say because they want Sunderland to be a carbon neutral city by 2050. We're talking about a 3-day event that gets up to 1 million people, but that's ridiculous. It's one of the biggest air shows in Europe, but it's only 3 days. It's not like we're talking about factories belching out smoke. So to get rid of that was absurd. Let's see. Unfortunately, Jeremy Kyle is still on TV. As for Gordon Ramsay, unless he publicly apologised for all the wrongs he did, as well as how he behaved, then I'm not buying it. Sorry. Yeah, I'd be a little bit wary. I mean, I don't know what age Ramsay is. I guess he'd be in his mid-50s, but I never warmed to the guy. And yeah, as you say, toxic Jeremy Vile, he was on Talk TV for a while. I was tempted to phone them up and answer whatever question they had, but then interrupt with some basically troll Kyle. I was honestly tempted to say, "So, Mr. Kyle, how do you sleep at night running away from that parliamentary inquiry?" Ghostbusters Afterlife. I really enjoyed it, Welsh Cowboy. I don't know what you thought. I thought it was a good bit of escapism. I enjoyed it. I must admit, when I looked at the trailer, I thought, well, what's this? Who are the Ghostbusters? I couldn't work out who the Ghostbusters actually were. But having watched it, I enjoyed it. I thought it was better than Afterlife. Oh, wait, sorry. You did watch Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Well, check it out. I think it's got the edge to Afterlife. Although Afterlife was a decent movie. Wizard of Oz Christmas. I will try to watch more. Wizard of Oz. Was that the original one with Judy Garland? I actually have 4 versions of that. I have the Wizard of Oz, the original one with Judy Garland. I have Return to Oz with Veruza Balk, the sort of dark version in the 80s. I have The Wiz, which actually had Michael Jackson as a scarecrow. That was criticised because of Dorothy in that. I think it was Diana Ross, actually. She was too old at the time. It was kind of a black version. It was an unusual version, very urban setting. By black, I mean it was a black cast. And what was the other one? Oz, the Great and Powerful with James Franco. I liked that version. I thought that was a creative take on it. The Forever Purge is worth watching. Well, that's a zombie movie, isn't it? Or have I got that right? It's funny. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been into that stuff, but now I'm open to just about everything except I cannot get into the Marvel universe. I just can't. Like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, massively successful, those films, commercially speaking. I mean, the Marvel world, it's just incredible what it's done in the 21st century. Those films have collectively grossed, $30 billion. It's just staggering. But I honestly, apart from the ones I'm familiar with, like Batman and Superman, I just can't really get into them because I can't. You see, for me, a moving film, I have empathy with the character, and if I'm looking at the cast, I don't know, maybe I could be persuaded to watch one of them, but I don't know the characters. I can't get into them. I don't quite see their appeal, but I'm sure I could be converted. I watched The Omen, which is about the Antichrist, but in recent years I was watching the Mandela Catalogue, which takes place in a hypothetical time where the devil was overwriting religion. Interesting. The Mandela Catalogue, I haven't heard of that one. There is a new horror film out, and I don't usually watch horror, but it's about a talk show in the 70s where things went wrong on set. It looks interesting, different. Just common sense. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. My girlfriend wanted me to watch it. Is that the remake with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie? I know that's based on an older movie with, I think, Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, but I could be wrong. Maybe I should be concerned she's from the US and loves guns. Yeah, just be careful there. Like I say, guys, I'm going to wrap this up soon as I'm going to bring our dog out. And she's a big girl, Belgian Shepherd. So, yeah, she needs to get quite a lot of exercise. But thankfully, she's more docile than when she was younger. She used to be really hyper. She'd run up the stairs and so on, up and down. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yeah, I think I've seen that movie. But what do you guys think of this new Ryan Gosling film? I think it's called The Fall Guy. I think it's a comedy about a stuntman. It might be different. I like Emily Blunt. Don't mind Ryan Gosling either, but I don't know. It might be. You see, I watched a film last year called Bullet Train, and I wasn't taken away by it. I thought it was just a bit over the top action. I mean, I like action, but there wasn't much of a story to Bullet Train, I thought. Just violence for the sake of it. I'm not sensitive to violence, but I think there should at least be a story there. Bullet Train was just... Also, it was very unrealistic. I mean, there was people being chucked out of a train at 100 miles per hour and somehow surviving. It felt a bit over the top. One of many films Brad Pitt seems to be the producer of, I should say. Okay, and that's me done. So guys, I'm going to give this 3 more minutes, so dry my hands, and we'll have a few more questions, and I'm going to have to wrap this one up. But I'm pleased that, I'm always pleased when people come by. I hope I've managed to answer all the questions. If I miss anything, please do excuse me. It's just a question of, how fast the comments come in. Like I say, Sunderland no longer has a cinema, so I have to go to one in Gateshead, but it's a nice little cinema view. It's the best cinema I've been to, actually. The one in Sunderland was an Empire. It was okay, but I like View. It's friendly staff. The cinema we had in Sunderland, it wasn't the best service. It could be a bit slow and sort of half bothered. The one in Gateshead is good service as well, so I've only positive things to say about that cinema. Even the pricing, they have free tariffs, so you can choose the tariff that you pay. $5.99 for seats at the front, $6.99, $7.99. So it's a good system, I think, because you're not paying that much. Cineworld, nice cinema, but it's extortionate prices. $12.99 for a single movie, including booking fee. Just to me, that's far too high a price. And then when you factor in, imagine someone goes with a family, they have young children, they get all of cinema food. I mean, they end up spending 50 quid easily. So it's way too much. I think for me, a reasonable price for a feature film in the cinema today would be around £7 mark, not more, not much more than that. Maybe $7.99. But I think when you start getting over a tenner, unless I am really feeling like I am there, like you're feeling cold or you're feeling wind or something, then I'm not going to pay more than that for as much as I love film. That's unreasonable, I think. If I was a billionaire, I would open my own cinema chain. I'd also open my own coffee shop chain, among many other things. Okay, I think that's it. So like I say, I'll do one or two more questions and wrap this up. Go scroll down again. Sometimes, like I say, the comments take a while to come through. Okay, we've had a few more. Apologies. Like I say, they're coming through sort of in a cluster. Let's see here. Right, I'm going to address these points, guys, and then wrap this one up. So let's just leave the comments now because there's quite a few there, and I might just skim over them because, like I say, I need to walk the dog. Okay, so it is an analog horror series by Alex Kister, and I highly recommend seeing his channel. Interesting. I don't watch that much horror. I have to say, it wouldn't be my go-to genre, but it sounds interesting. It sounds different. Yes, I was making a comment about suicide regarding Jeremy Kyle show. Allegedly, suicide and hate crime towards the trans community has risen because of the hatred towards them by politicians and media. This is a dicey area, Kevin. I mean, I've known a few trans people, and I genuinely have sympathy for body dysphoria, what they're going through in that sense. But there is legitimate debate around, for example, biology, things that impact women, like, for example, women's sports, women's prisons, etc. And I wouldn't say that simply debating those things should be kind of not done because trans people may be sensitive about it. Certainly, I think that you're right. I mean, there is a higher suicide rate in the trans community. There's a lot of issues at stake there. There's also been situations where young people have been told that they're trans, repeatedly told that they're trans, and in the case of teenage girls, they've gotten a mastectomy. Later on, they regret it. So this isn't a black and white issue. But you are right, there is issues around suicide. But I think hatred's a strong word. Would you say J.K. Rowling is spreading hatred against trans people? I don't think she is. I think she's standing up for biological reality and women's rights. I wouldn't necessarily use the word hatred, and I don't think it was ever featured on the Jeremy Kyle show. Not that I recall. It wasn't one of the go-tos. But I do think there has to be space for debate on these things. It's about how it's done. Toxic boxes within each rooms of his apartment in Mar-a-Lago resort. He also had the audacity to share them with everyone, especially documents. Oh, we're talking about the Trump thing. Yeah. Rotten with corruption, in my opinion. And if you say Britain is the only country to have jobs and antisocial behaviour, certainly not. I mean, I know in Australia there's a colloquial name for them there. France, believe it or not, some of the banlieues in Paris have serious problems. Every country has this problem. I read something yesterday where England fans were being sent to a hotel in a rundown area of Frankfurt in Germany, which is full of drug dealers. And, you know, I saw a picture of them, their faces were faded out, but that could be a housing estate in Liverpool or Sheffield or Glasgow. So we do have a problem. I wonder, is there a particular aspect of the British job culture that's unique? Maybe, maybe. I certainly think drink is a big problem in this country. That may be different than other European countries, but I don't think we're totally unique in this regard. How we deal with it is the question, and I think we are far, far too lenient. I have no problem saying that I'm a conservative when it comes to this issue because I know what it's like. Antisocial behavior can ruin lives. So, Kevin, I watch films on Netflix and Amazon. The last one I watched was Scoop about Prince Andrew, or the Emily Maitlis one. Yeah, oh yeah, they had Gillian Anderson in the role. And was it who was playing Prince Andrew? Was it Steve Coogan, or I can't remember who played Prince Andrew? But I mean, if I still had Netflix, I'd watch that one probably. Or be it yet, Carly Vile. Yeah. Welsh Cowboy. No, the Flower Purge is sequel to the Purge movies where all crime, including murder, is legal for one night of the year. Damn, sounds like Haiti. But sounds like it could be an intriguing series. I know in Detroit there was something called Devil's Night, and it was said to be this night where antisocial behavior just went wild, sort of coinciding with Halloween. But then there was Angel's Morning where people would clean it up or something. In Britain, we have Mischief Night around Yorkshire, which to me sounds like a recipe for encouraging antisocial behaviour. And we talk about this as if it's a trivial thing, but it really can destroy lives. Yes, it was remade in 05. Yeah, I knew Mr. and Mrs. Smith was 2000, so I thought it was a little bit earlier actually. I go to, let's see here. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. Immediately encouraged by the name of your Ford Prefect. I was going to say something witty about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy there, but can't think of anything witty. But I think you all owe us a pint. You owe us all a pint, I should say. I was watching that recently, actually, the 2005 version. Immediately encouraged by the name of your channel was in my recommended. Thank you, appreciate it. Cineworld do a card for $9.99 a month and can watch whatever you want unlimited. How does that work? Is it like one of those loyalty card things? Because I mean that would be very reasonable, except that you have to register it and then you have to put a certain amount of money on and all that nonsense. I do not like anything to do with apps or but if that is the case, that's very I mean, definitely that would save money. Even so, I still have to get the bus to the Cineworld where I live. But yeah, it's interesting. $9.99 a month, and that's unlimited. And is that any seats, or is it like you have to sit in a particular spot? Dishes drip dry or towel dry? Well, just hand washing them, and they're in a rack at the moment, so I kind of let them dry off a bit, then dry up the remaining part. America definitely has a good amount of jobs, usually young, immature college lads. The thing about America, it's, I mean, this is the thing, every country has a job culture, but it's the specific characteristics. I mean, with America, they have these subcultures, and this is not my words, but so-called white trash. You have certainly in Los Angeles and Chicago, you'd have black gangs, except in America, it goes even beyond job culture. It's, downright gang warfare. So I think it's even worse in the States. Although in Britain, we definitely have, I mean, we have a notorious problem in this country with football hooligans, which I don't think it's somewhat improved from the 70s and 80s, but it's not gone. Unfortunately, it's not gone. It disgusts me. I remember just a little anecdote about this job culture thing. I was coming back from Hartlepool with my dad. We were getting the buses because he gets free bus travel. And we had to stop off in a little town called Peterlee in County Durham. It's well known for drug problems and so on. But we were at the bus station, which was a dump, waiting for the next bus. And just this woman was just shouting everything across. Now, she wasn't being aggressive exactly, but I'm thinking, do you have to shout everything? It makes me anxious. It makes me uneasy. I'm just thinking it's like, that's why I would call the job culture. It's not always manifested by violence. It's just this total lack of consideration for other people. Yeah, nothing wrong with with debate, but massive problem with hatred. But this is the problem, Kevin. I mean, who gets to define hatred? Because if J.K. Rowling is saying, "I believe biology matters," some trans people will say that's hatred. I disagree. I think that is. I agree with her. So my issue is how easily the word hatred is thrown around. Who gets to define that? I mean, if someone says, if there's actual hate crime against a trans person, like violence or they're getting abuse hurled at them, that's awful, and I would absolutely condemn that. But I would say we need to define what is hatred, because frankly, it's one of those words that get thrown around a lot. I've heard that word used when someone simply disagrees with someone else's opinion. Oh, you're being hateful. So I do think it needs to be defined. That's all I would say. Look up Cineworld Unlimited. I certainly will. I mean, that's very good. Plus a discount on popcorn and drinks. I make my own popcorn. I get these little bags, 29 pence, and you get a lot of it. That's fresh. I never buy like made popcorn. It's I have to consider my finances. But yeah, I mean that granted, if that is the price, that's very good. I don't like stuff where you have to register online and then top up money onto it. But certainly, if I was going to Cineworld, I would look into that. Don't forget knife crime too. Well, again, knife crime to me, it overlaps with yob culture, but it's an elevation, isn't it? Because that can include murders and yob culture is. It could be a pretty ugly thing, but it's more an attitude, I think. It's not always violence. It's just a general attitude of not giving a damn about society. I mean, you'd get equivalents in every country. Definitely in America, Australia, you would get equivalents. But some of the nature of British job culture is unique. Yeah, it may well be something I can make a video about. But for now, I'm going to have to shut off, guys. Knife crime is the UK's worst characteristic. I'd say it's pretty high up there. I would agree with that. Yeah. For me, one of our worst characteristics is a detached justice system. It just doesn't understand public opinion. It's not the worst in the world, but it is massively detached. Domestically speaking, that's one of the biggest contentions I have in this country, is our legal establishment. The sentencing councils in England and Wales and Scotland, respectively, they just seem to live on another planet. It infuriates me. Okay, this last question, guys, from Ray. Hi, Nathan. Has your Chinese friends ever had a hard time in the UK with racism? Interesting question. My former girlfriend did complain that she was overcharged on a taxi. And I remember meeting her in Germany. She claimed that it's because we're Chinese. Now, I have to say, she couldn't really prove that. And I did say to her, look, they sometimes cheat local people as well. So it's not necessarily. But I did experience something myself. Another girlfriend I had, I definitely heard racial abuse, and I sort of looked in the background from the nightlife, but I couldn't see who had said it because my male pride would have probably taken the better of me. But I have seen it. Yeah, I've seen people, particularly in Sunderland, shouting out verbals, and sometimes the Chinese have shouted back. It's never really got out of hand, but I would say they have experienced it. Yeah. Having said that, there are Chinese students who will use the racism card to deflect legitimate criticism about the Chinese government and about their own behavior. Like that guy, I forget his name, Brendan Kavanagh, they tried using the racism card against him. That was nonsense. He simply said, you're in the UK. That's why you're holding the Chinese flag. That is not racism. So it does happen, but I think some people weaponize it as well. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to go, but thank you very much for your participation. Have a good evening. And yeah, that's it. Until the next live stream, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you for all your support. Good night, guys. Thanks a lot, and look after yourselves.